Now, before we begin actually rigging our human character, there are a couple of things that we need to ensure are in place before we begin rigging. Now, what we're going to do is we're just going to set up our scene so that we can minimize any issues with our rigs later on. So here I've got a scene with a human character model and a plane for it to stand on. At the moment, we have our human character model with the object origin located in the center of the geometry. But the object origin is not located at the center of the world origin. What we're going to want to do is we're going to want to position the object origin at the world origin for both the character model and our rig that we're going to be creating. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to reposition the object origin down to the bottom of my human character's feet. This is a personal preference for me, where I like to place the object origin of characters at the very bottom. To do this, we're going to use the snapping tool. So turn on snapping, and then make sure you're snapping to the vertex. Then go to options, and from this selection here, select origins. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to orbit my view so that I can see one of these bottom vertices for my feet. Hit G, then lock it to the Z axis, and then hover my mouse over one of those vertices at the bottom of my character. Then left click to confirm. This is going to position my object origin at the bottom of my character. Then come back to the options menu and turn off this origins option. So when it comes to the geometry itself, our object origin is in the correct place. We now want to move our entire object to where the 3D cursor is, which is the center of the world origin. To do that is very easy. Just go to the item tab in your side panel, and then change the location on the Z axis to a value of 0. Now your human character should be sitting on top of the world origin. Let's do the same for the plane. So grab it on the Z axis and use a value of 0. So now everything should be in place to begin adding our armature. I'm just going to turn off my snapping tool while I remember, and then save my work. Now you can see I already have a pre-existing save file. You can save this as whatever file that you want in any location. I'm just going to make sure that this is saved. And by the way, because rigging is a process where it's very easy to make minor errors that can snowball later on, it's important that you save regularly and that you also save a backup. So what we're going to do here as well is we're going to go File, Save As, and I'm just going to come down here and say BU for backup, and then 1. So this is my first backup at the point where we have the object origin in the correct place. Next, we're going to add ourselves an armature. An armature is a type of object in Blender that uses bones, similar to how a mesh object will use vertices, edges, and faces. An armature will use bones. To add an armature, hit Shift and A, and then in the Add menu, come down to where it says Armature and left click. Now, because my human character is about 1.6 meters tall, the bone that's created is normally set to a value of 1. So I'm just going to reduce this value. Let's try 0.2. And that will be a much more suitable size. Now the sizing of this bone isn't really going to matter. because this is going to be our master control bone. This is going to be the bone that's going to allow us to move our entire rig. Now, what we want to do here is we want to give this a name. So to give a specific bone its own name, we want to come to the Properties panel and select the Bone Properties tab. So left click on the Bone Properties tab, and at the moment it's labelled as bone because it's the only bone in our armature. We're going to left click and rename this as Master Control. And now we have the indication that this is going to be our master control bone. Now before we go any further, what I would like you to do is come back to your object data properties, which is located directly above the bone properties. And then where it has viewport display, make sure you open this up and check the box that says in front. This is going to come in handy when we begin creating our bones that are going to exist inside of our armature. So left click to make sure that's enabled. Nothing will change initially because our only bone is already outside of the mesh. You can also change the display as option. So currently it's set to octahedral, and you can choose from any of these here. So you can go with stick, B-bone, envelope, and wire. For this course, I'm going to stick to octahedral. However, in the next lecture, I'm going to show you how you can actually create custom shapes for specific bones, which is what we're going to be doing with our master control bone in the next video.